Honorable député de Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Resuming debate to the Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to have this opportunity to rise and speak to Bill C-45, and I'd like to say that I'm not the only one to have done so, to say that I disagree with the way we're proceeding with this mammoth omnibus bill. Call it what you want. The fact remains that in the bill there are more than 400 pages that affect a number of areas, and we're only given one opportunity to debate it, and we will have to vote on all of those measures in one vote, even though they are so diverse. There's nothing to understand about this kind of procedure from a government that boasted about being transparent. Quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, we wonder about those pious wishes here today. As a parliamentarian, I'll have an opportunity to vote once and once only. There are some aspects of the bill that I agree with, and I would be pleased to vote in favor of those aspects. But unfortunately, there are several aspects that are incomplete, that require amendment, or simply shouldn't be there in the first place. And I'm in a position where I have to vote yes or no on a variety of issues. That's not transparent at all, and nor is it democratic. Now, I've also heard many of my colleagues say, well, what are you complaining about? Everything in C-45 was already outlined in the budget. Well, I'd like to set the record straight, Mr. Speaker. That is not true. Everything in C-45 wasn't included in the budget. Stop lying to Canadians. That's shameful. I'll just give you a few examples. Now, in C-45, there is a change that will have change appeal processes for grain producers. I didn't find that in the budget for last spring, nor was there anything about the navigable waterways. It's in C-45, but wasn't in the budget. This, therefore, requires in-depth study and consideration. Now, when we're faced with such a big bill like this, there's confusion, certain things that happen, unexpected issues. Now, the Liberals made a proposal to separate or to split the bill, to split off the pension aspects. If we'd accepted that proposal, Mr. Speaker, we would have voted yes to a small part that dealt with members' pensions, but also something that deals with the workers in the public service, people in the Canadian Forces, and we would have, in one fell swoop, without any debate, had an impact on more than 450,000 Canadians. That would have affected their pensions. Just imagine how contemptuous that would be towards those people who will see their pensions changed without even paying some attention to it and debating the issue. Mr. Speaker, that too is a lack of respect, which stems from neglect of democracy that will affect the trust that people have, Canadians have, in their parliamentary system, and the seriousness that we show to such an important issue for so many people in this country, Mr. Speaker. I'd now like to say a few more words in greater detail about certain aspects of Bill C-45. The change with respect to the age of working age. Now, if you're hired on January 13th, 2013, you will be getting your pension not at 60, but at 65. We're not talking about a few months or a few days more. It's 5 additional years. Those changes are not justified. What it says in the budget is that it's important for the sustainability of the pension program and that it would be more responsible. Well, Mr. Speaker, those few words do not in any way fully justify such a significant change to a pension program. Sustainability. Well, what are they basing their comments on, Mr. Speaker? We need to have, or what real reasons, in fact, are they using for wanting to increase the pension age from 60 to 65? They need to be open to debate, to discussion. We can't simply allow them to say that because due to sustainability, we need to make these changes. I want some studies. I want to see figures that will show that long-term sustainability is at stake. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are also some changes that have been announced to the OAS. Studies by experts who aren't partisan have shown that OAS in its current form, where it becomes available at 65, is sustainable in the long term. We don't need any, or you don't need to do a lot of studies because we do have an aging population, and to determine that costs will go up. Yes, that is true. But we will have more seniors, Mr. Speaker.
Does that mean it's not viable in the long term, Mr. Speaker? Of course not. The fact that it's going to cost a little more doesn't mean that we simply can't provide it any longer. Experts do very in-depth, long-term analyses, and they take a number of factors into consideration, and they unanimously do state that OAS is a program that we can afford to keep with access at age 65. People have asked a number of times, myself as critic for seniors, I've asked to see the numbers, show us the reports, show us the studies that the government bases its claim on, its claim that the system is not viable or sustainable. And to date, I have not received any justification, any valid explanation to explain the change. And the Auditor General's report clearly says that there are numbers and studies that could have been used, that could have given information to explain the real reason for changing the eligibility age for OAS, but that hasn't been done. Those reports and studies have not been communicated. So once again, we still need a report on the long-term viability of public finance. We also learned that the finance minister doesn't necessarily have all the information on the long-term impact of his decisions. He makes decisions, and then afterward, the department tells him what the repercussions might be. Frankly, Mr. Speaker, we have grounds to doubt the real reasons behind the changes proposed in C-45 and in the Conservatives' last budget. Now, that's what I had to say about pensions and how they're affected by C-45. I'd also like to talk about another issue that's related to Canadians' financial security, and that is pooled pension plans. A lot of experts agree that pooled pension plans are not part of the solution to financial security for seniors. In fact, they're part of the problem. Yes, something serious has to be done immediately, if possible, to protect the financial security of retired Canadians. And what you have to do is not set up another pension plan that's similar to an RRSP. So there are RRSPs already, and not everyone contributes to them. A lot of people simply can't afford to put money away for retirement. So what will a pooled pension plan add? Well, employers can use that to appear to be offering a pension plan, but because it's not a real savings plan, but it will make it possible for employers to say, we're providing this, and if workers want to contribute to it, that's fine, but the employer doesn't have to make any commitment, and this can be an excuse for not doing anything else, not offering anything else to workers. So the experts say we do have to think about our pension system, defined benefit pensions. That is what will enable Canadians to save for their retirement, to know what amount they'll be able to rely on when they retire. So there are things to be done to make sure that defined benefit plans are sustainable. I could talk about this a lot longer, but I see my time is running short. Obviously, you can't do a comprehensive speech on C-45 in 10 minutes with the number of pages in the bill. But if the minister says austerity is prudent, I say, well, be careful, because we shouldn't necessarily believe that the cuts proposed here are necessary. There's a lot of ideology here and maybe even some lies, I would say. Time is up. Questions and comments? John.
Westmont-Ville-Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague. She talked about old age security, which is a very important theme. She talked about the Auditor General's report. In that report, if I'm not mistaken, a comparison was made between costs to maintain the current system, i.e. with retirement at age 65, and the government's proposal. The government feels this is not sustainable with age 65, so they've pushed it up. They've increased the eligibility to 67. The difference, 0.3% of GDP. So that's obviously not an indicator that the system was not viable or not sustainable. So why does the member think the government is saying that when we're at stake here is only 0.3% of 1% of GDP? The Honourable Member. Well, that's precisely why I said yes. In Canada, we can afford to provide access to OAS at age 65. So why do the Conservatives want to increase the eligibility age? It's an excellent question. Maybe if I were in their shoes, I might know why. Maybe they have some documents to explain that. But to date, no one understands why the age is being increased to 67. Why not 66? Why not 68? Why in 10 years, not 7 years? What effect will all these decisions have? What cost is being transferred to the provinces? So far, Mr. Speaker, we're not being given any of that information, and that's completely unfortunate.